All right, let's dive straight in. Food. It's way beyond just fuel. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, absolutely. It's this fundamental part of, well, everything, our history, our society.
Our identities, even.
Exactly. It's remarkable how many different angles there are to explore something so essential to us.
Totally. And for this exploration, we've really, dug into a wide range of information. We used AI to help synthesize stuff from biology, anthropology, history.
Genetics, physics, even philosophy and economics, culture, psychology. It's all in there.
Yeah, the goal is to really unpack the complex world of food.
Thinking about the bigger picture, AI gives us this amazing ability to pull together insights from all these different fields.
Right.
It lets us see food not just as something we eat, but as this intricate system just loaded with information.
So our aim today is really to extract the crucial insights, how food evolved with us, how it shapes cultures.
And of course, the big one, how it impacts our health, our well-being.
It makes you wonder, where do we even begin to define something so completely interwoven with our lives?
Good question.
Well, the most basic definition is biological, right? Food gives us the energy and the building blocks we need to live, to grow.
We're talking macronutrients, carbs, proteins, fats. They power us, build our bodies.
And then you've got the micronutrients, vitamins, minerals.
Essential for all those, vital little processes happening inside us.
It's interesting, though, the FAO's view is broader, isn't it?
Yeah, they bring in where it comes from: agriculture, fisheries, the whole production side.
And the environment, society, economics, it's all connected.
Right. And a healthy diet. Well, it's not just calories, it's diversity, getting enough of the right stuff, moderation, balance, the whole package.
But then you step away from the science bit, and food becomes this incredibly rich part of our cultures, our social lives.
Definitely. What we eat can say so much about who we are, where we come from.
Think about rituals like the Passover Seder.
Or fasting during Ramadan.
Yeah, these aren't just about eating or not eating. They're deep, shared history, identity.
And there's this constant back and forth, isn't there, between culture and our food systems.
How so?
Well, what we value culturally affects what we grow and eat, and then what's available can shape our traditions over time. It's a loop.
Makes sense. And economically, food is obviously massive, huge global thing.
And food security, making sure everyone can actually get enough nutritious food, that's a fundamental challenge.
That's not just about availability, is it? It's affordability. Can people actually buy it?
Exactly. And then you have the whole food environment, the stores nearby, the restaurants, what's easy, what's cheap. That shapes choices massively.
So from an AI perspective, how does it see food?
It's fascinating. AI can kind of treat food like a complex data object.
Data object.
Yeah, with all these layers: biological data, nutrients; chemical data, molecules; cultural data, traditions, preferences; economic data, cost, access; social data, how we eat, who with.
Wow. So AI can map all those connections, like if tastes change.
It can model how that might ripple out, affect farming, maybe even impact nutrition trends down the line.
That's powerful.
It really is. And it shows that if you want to improve things, say public health, you can't just tweak one thing.
Right. You need that multidimensional view.
Precisely. Interventions need to consider all those interconnected factors.
Okay, now let's zoom out. Big picture history. The basic need for food that's driven so much, hasn't it?
Oh, fundamentally. Migrations, innovation, even conflict sometimes. It's always been a driving force.
And it shapes our individual lives too, right?
Yeah.
Across the whole lifespan.
Absolutely. Our nutritional needs change so much. Infancy, old age, totally different requirements.
And even before birth. Maternal nutrition has these huge long-term effects.
Epigenetics, right?
Yeah. Influencing risks for things like obesity or diabetes later on. It's incredible.
And in those early years, feeding kids, we actually had a listener ask about that illusion of quantities idea.
Yeah. Using smaller plates to make portions look bigger.
Exactly. Playing with perception to encourage eating.
It's a great example of the psychology involved. It's not just biology. It's how our minds interact with food, even really young. And then you look globally. The sheer variety of what people consider food. It's wild.
Totally. What's a delicacy? One place is completely taboo somewhere else.
Culture really dictates so much. Not just what we eat, but how we classify it, prepare it.
The whole social setting around meals? Think about religious dietary laws, kosher halal. very specific rules.
Yeah, so AI can help map all this incredible diversity.
It can try by analyzing historical records, anthropological studies, diet surveys.
It can start to separate the universal needs, what we all require, from the specific cultural ways we meet them.
Exactly. Tracing how food habits evolved, how they interact with environment, culture, health, across our whole lives.
All right, let's rewind way back. Evolution time. Our diets haven't always looked like they do now. Not even close.
Right. It's this long story of interaction. Our environment, our technology, our biology, our culture, all feeding into each other.
So way, way back, early hominins. Most of the plants.
Seems like it. Fruits, leaves, roots, nuts. The evidence from teeth, the wear patterns suggest they were adapted for tough plant stuff.
And this changed over time.
Yeah, between about 4.4 and 2.3 million years ago, you see shifts in those dental adaptations.
Then Homo arrives on the scene, and things change again. More meat.
We start seeing evidence around 2.5 million years ago. Stone tools, cut marks on animal bones. It becomes pretty significant with Homo erectus, maybe 1.8, 1.9 million years ago.
But why the shift? What did meat offer?
Well, it's a very concentrated source of protein, fat, key micronutrients, and it might have coincided with climate shifts in Africa, maybe fewer easy-to-digest plants, more grazing animals around.
And then fire, the original kitchen upgrade, basically.
Yeah, a massive game changer. Absolutely transformative.
When did that happen?
The exact timing is debated. Some hints maybe 1.5 million years ago, but the really solid evidence is more like 800,000 years ago.
And cooking. What did it do for us?
Fundamentally changed things. Made food more digestible, plants and meat, softened tough foods, detoxified some plants, killed pathogens, big energy boost.
And that energy boost linked to bigger brains.
That's a major hypothesis. Less energy needed for digestion meant more energy available for our very energy-hungry brains.
Makes sense. Okay, fast forward a lot. The agricultural revolution, around 12,000 years ago.
Roughly, yeah. Farming changes? Well, almost everything.
More stable food supply, settled communities.
Yep. And populations started growing significantly.
But there were trade-offs.
Oh, definitely. Diets often became less diverse, more reliance on starchy grains, potentially fewer micronutrients, and living close together brought new challenges like disease spread.
So with all this history, fossils, tools, climate data, how does AI help piece it together? It sounds like a giant puzzle.
It is. AI's strength is integrating all those different data types. Fossil records, archaeology, paleoclimate data, even ancient DNA.
To build models.
Exactly. Models to see how these factors interacted. Test hypotheses about why diets shifted. Simulate the energetic consequences. Map how farming spread. It helps connect the dots.
Okay, so it wasn't just our behavior changing, our biology changed too. This gene-culture coevolution idea.
It's fascinating, isn't it, this constant feedback loop?
How does it work?
Well, cultural innovations around food, like tools, cooking, farming, they created new pressures, selective pressures on our genes.
Favoring certain traits.
Right. And then those biological adaptations could influence how our culture developed further. Diet's been a huge driver of our evolution.
And that expensive tissue hypothesis, I always found that compelling. Big brains meant smaller guts.
Basically, yeah. To afford the energy cost of a large brain, we needed to save energy elsewhere. A higher quality, easier to digest diet thanks to meat and cooking meant we didn't need such large, energy-intensive digestive systems.
Compared to, say, great apes.
Exactly. We have longer small intestines for absorption, much smaller colons for fermentation, less gut tissue to maintain.
And you can actually see hints of this in our genes.
You can. Like the MYH16 gene for jaw muscles, it seems to have become non-functional, a pseudogene, around the time brains were expanding.
Suggesting less need for powerful chewing.
Plausibly, yeah, with softer, cooked food. And there are changes in liver genes involved in metabolism, too, things that look like adaptations to a cooked diet.
What about adaptations specifically for meat eating? Processing fats, dealing with toxins.
It's likely there were adaptations for fat processing, and maybe better ways to handle potential pathogens or toxins in meat, though the specific genetic evidence there is still developing.
Then agriculture arrives, and boom, another wave of adaptations. Lactase persistence is the classic example, right? Digesting milk as adults.
The perfect example of gene culture coevolution. The cultural practice of dairying created strong selection pressure favoring genes that let adults digest lactose. And it happened independently in different places.
Wow. And what about starches? Agriculture meant way more grains.
Right. So we see populations with high starch diets tend to have more copies of the AMY1 gene.
That's the salivary amylase gene for breaking down starch.
Exactly. More copies, more enzyme, better starch digestion, and that gene evolved really fast. There are other potential agricultural adaptations, too, related to metabolizing plant compounds, maybe even diabetes risk.
So our genes sort of remember our ancestral diets.
Mm-hmm.
But now, our food environment is completely different. Processed foods everywhere.
And that's the crux of the mismatch hypothesis. Our biology is, in a way, still adapted for ancestral conditions.
But we're living in this totally novel nutritional landscape.
High energy, processed foods, often low in fiber and micronutrients. Our genes haven't caught up to these rapid changes in the last few centuries, let alone decades.
And that mismatch is linked to modern diseases. Obesity, type 2 diabetes, heart disease.
It's considered a major contributing factor. Traits that were maybe helpful when food was scarce, like efficient fat storage, can become detrimental when calories are super abundant.
A double-edged sword.
Precisely. Genes good for surviving famine might not be so great when facing a constant feast.
So AI can dig into our genomes, find those evolutionary signatures.
Yeah, identify genes under selection related to diet, and then model how those genes interact with modern diets. That's nutrigenomics.
Helping understand individual responses. Disease susceptibility.
That's the goal, paving the way for more personalized nutrition based on our unique genetic background and how it meshes or mismatches with what we eat today.
Okay, so let's get into the science of sustenance. Nutrition. At its core, it's how our bodies use food, right? For energy, building, maintenance.
Exactly, and how imbalances in diet can lead to health problems, disease.
It's all about energy balance, ultimately. Calories in, calories out.
Pretty much. The first law of thermodynamics in action. Energy from food fuels everything work, heat, building new tissues. Excess gets stored, mostly as fat, which is super energy dense, by the way.
Right. And even just resting, our bodies burn energy. The basal metabolic rate, BMR.
Yep, just keeping the lights on. And some organs, like the brain, liver, heart, kidneys, they use a surprising amount of that energy.
Where does the energy come from mainly?
The macronutrients. Carbohydrates, primary fuel source, broken down to glucose. Proteins, building blocks, enzymes, hormones. Fats, super energy dense. Plus roles in cell membranes, hormones absorbing certain vitamins.
And then the micronutrients, vitamins and minerals, tiny amounts, but crucial.
Absolutely vital. Vitamins often act as coenzymes, helping enzymes do their jobs. Minerals are key for structure, transport, nerve signals, lots of things. Deficiencies cause specific diseases, think scurvy or iron deficiency anemia.
So nutrient density is important, getting lots of those micros without tons of calories.
That's a key concept. Fruits, vegetables, lean proteins, whole grains, generally nutrient dense. But it's not just what's in the food.
It's what we actually absorb. Bioavailability.
Exactly. How much of a nutrient gets absorbed and used, it depends on the food itself, other things eaten with it.
Like heme iron from meat being easier to absorb than non-heme from plants.
Classic example. Or how vitamin C boosts non-heme iron absorption. Phytates in grains can hinder mineral absorption. It's complex.
And this is where AI could potentially help personalize things.
Huge potential. Integrating our genetics, microbiome data, lifestyle, health status, AI could help estimate individual needs much better. Model how we specifically might respond to different foods metabolically.
Predicting blood sugar spikes, things like that?
Potentially, yes. It's the foundation for truly personalized nutrition advice, moving beyond one-size-fits-all guidelines.
Speaking of guidelines, they're meant to translate all this science into practical advice.
That's the idea. Government health agencies, WHO, they put out recommendations. And the focus has shifted over time.
How so?
Used to be mainly about preventing deficiencies, like scurvy. Now it's much more about overall eating patterns for long-term health, preventing chronic diseases like heart disease, diabetes.
So less focus on single nutrients, more on the whole diet.
Generally, yes. The synergy between foods matters. Patterns like the Mediterranean diet or DASH diet are often highlighted.
Which usually means lots of fruits, veggies, whole grains, legumes, nuts, seeds.
Lean proteins, fish, and limiting things like red and processed meats, sugary drinks, refined grains, sodium, unhealthy fats.
Nutrient density is a big theme there too.
Definitely. Getting the most nutritional bang for your calorie buck. Spinach, salmon, beans, berries, nuts, oats. Classic examples.
Okay, what about meat? It comes up a lot. Nutrient dense, important evolutionarily, but also risks.
It's complicated. Meat offers high-quality protein, essential amino acids, vitamin B12, which is hard to get from plants, easily absorbed heme iron, zinc, selenium. Fatty fish have omega-3s. It played a role, no doubt.
But the downside?
High intake of red meat, and especially processed meats, is consistently linked with increased risk of cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, colorectal cancer.
So the advice is usually moderation, swapping some out.
Generally, yes. Choosing leaner cuts, limiting processed versions, maybe replacing some meat meals with plant proteins like beans or lentils.
In plant-based diets, vegetarian, vegan, they're growing in popularity. Why?
Multiple reasons. Health is a big one, but also ethical concerns about animal welfare and environmental sustainability.
And the hillside. What does the evidence show?
Well-planned plant-based diets are associated with lower BMI, better cholesterol levels, lower blood sugar, lower risk of heart disease, maybe some cancers.
But well-planned is key, right? Risk of deficiencies.
Absolutely crucial. Need to pay attention to vitamin B12, often needs supplementing. Vitamin D, calcium, iron, zinc, omega-3s, especially EPA, DHA. Careful planning is essential to get everything needed.
Okay, then there's the other end of the spectrum. Ultra-processed foods. UPFs. Getting a lot of bad press.
And for good reason. Based on the evidence, these are industrial formulations, often with long ingredient lists, additives.
Things you wouldn't find in a home kitchen.
Pretty much. And they make up a huge chunk of calorie intake in many wealthy countries, and they're spreading globally.
And the health links.
Consistently linked to higher risk of overweight, obesity, heart disease, type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, some cancers, depression, even dying earlier from any cause.
Wow, why are they so bad?
Several reasons proposed. They're often energy-dense but nutrient-poor, high in unhealthy fats, added sugars, sodium, low in fiber, protein, micronutrients. They're often hyperpalatable, designed to be almost addictive.
So you eat more without feeling full.
That seems to be part of it. Randomized controlled trials have actually shown people eat more calories and gain weight when their diet is high in UPFs compared to minimally processed foods, even when matched for macros. Plus, there are concerns about additives, contaminants from packaging.
It's a bit scary. And we shouldn't forget some natural foods can be dangerous too. Toxic plants.
Right. Things like nightshade, castor beans, foxglove, poisonous mushrooms. Identification is key. Nature isn't always benign.
So AI can help us wade through all this, analyzing nutritional data, comparing food.
Yeah, it can crunch numbers from huge databases, calculate nutrient density, compare recipes, evaluate overall diet quality based on food logs.
And make sense of those big population studies linking diet and disease.
Exactly. Processing massive epidemiological data sets to find those correlations between dietary patterns and long-term health outcomes.
But even with good food available, poor diets are still a massive global health problem. This dual burden idea.
It's a huge issue. Poor diet is the #1 risk factor for death and disability globally.
And that includes both undernutrition.
Right.
Yeah.
Stunting, wasting in kids, impaired development, vulnerability to infection. Plus micronutrient deficiencies, iron, vitamin A, iodine, zinc affecting billions, global hunger, food insecurity driven by poverty, conflict, climate change, broken food systems, and it's tragic.
And overnutrition leading to the obesity epidemic.
Exactly. That's the dual burden. Countries facing both undernutrition and soaring rates of obesity and related diseases like type 2 diabetes, heart disease, hypertension, some cancers.
Linked to that modern food environment. UPFs, sedentary lives.
That's the dominant theory. And specific dietary components are major culprits for non-communicable diseases, NCDs.
Like saturated and trans fats for cholesterol and heart disease.
Yep. Added sugars for weight gain, insulin resistance, diabetes, heart disease, high sodium for blood pressure, processed meats for colorectal cancer, heart disease, and not enough protective foods. Fruits, veggies, whole grains, nuts, seeds.
Food safety is another big piece too. Contamination.
Bacteria, viruses, parasites, chemicals, causing acute illness, sometimes long-term issues, plus harmful compounds formed during cooking or processing like acrylamide or PAHs, and those natural toxins.
So AI's role here, identifying risks, maybe even food safety monitoring.
Potential there too. Analyzing data to spot risk factors for diet-related diseases, building predictive models. And in food safety, AI could help detect contamination earlier in the supply chain.
Okay, shifting gears a bit. Food isn't just physical fuel. It's so tied up with our minds, emotions, perception.
Absolutely. Eating is deeply psychological. It influences what we eat, how much, our mood, stress levels, our mental well-being.
The gut-brain axis is central here, isn't it? That connection.
Yeah. It's a fascinating area. Nutrients directly impact neurotransmitter production. Tryptophan becomes serotonin, the feel-good one. Tyrosine becomes dopamine pleasure, motivation.
Omega-3 fats for brain cell structure, function.
Right. Neurotransmission, inflammation control, even just stable blood sugar helps mood stability.
And the microbiome, those gut bacteria making their own brain chemicals.
Emerging science, but yes. Our gut bugs seem to talk to our brains, influencing mood and maybe even behavior.
Explains comfort food, partly, that temporary relief.
There's a neurochemical basis. Dopamine release gives pleasure, but also psychological links, nostalgia, positive memories.
But it can become a crutch, emotional eating.
That's the danger. Using food to cope with stress, sadness, boredom. Cortisol, the stress hormone, can trigger cravings for high-fat, high-sugar foods.
Temporary mood boost, but problems long-term.
Can lead to eating without hunger, overeating, guilt. And chronic stress plus comfort food might even change brain chemistry around hunger and fullness signals over time.
Could AI help break that cycle? Maybe track stress and eating patterns?
Potentially. Wearable sensors tracking stress markers, combined with AI analyzing diet and mood logs, could offer personalized nudges, suggesting alternative coping strategies, mindfulness in real time.
Interesting. What about portion sizes? We seem hardwired to eat what's put in front of us.
The portion size effect is incredibly robust. Bigger portions lead to eating more, often without us realizing it or feeling hungrier.
And portions have gotten bigger over time. Portion distortion.
Definitely. What looks normal now would have seemed huge decades ago. Our visual estimation doesn't keep up. We underestimate large portions more. We rely on external cues, like clearing the plate, more than internal fullness cues.
And kids, that illusion of quantities thing suggests their influence too.
Young kids might be slightly better at self-regulating initially, but they're definitely susceptible. That's why parents use strategies like smaller plates, pre-portioning snacks, playing with those visual cues. Even when dessert is served, can affect how much main course they eat.
So AI solutions, portion estimation apps using phone cameras.
That's an area of development. Computer vision to estimate portion size and provide feedback. Help recalibrate our perception. AI could also analyze packaging and restaurant trends to track portion inflation.
Now, a very serious aspect of food and psychology, eating disorders.
Crucial to understand, these are serious psychiatric illnesses, not lifestyle choices, not lack of willpower. They have biological underpinning.
And they affect everyone, all demographics.
Absolutely. Anorexia nervosa, severe restriction, low weight, intense fear of gain, distorted body image. Bulimia nervosa, binge eating, followed by compensatory behaviors like purging. Binge eating disorder, recurrent binges with distress, but no regular compensation.
There's also ARFID.
Avoidant restrictive food intake disorder, limiting food due to lack of interest, sensory issues, or fear of negative consequences like chirking distinct from body image concerns. And OSFED for significant issues not meeting full criteria for the others.
The physical health consequences sound severe.
They can be devastating. Malnutrition, heart problems, gut issues, bone density loss, electrolyte imbalances, dental problems, infertility, organ failure, high comorbidity with depression, anxiety, OCD, substance use, tragically high suicide risk too.
Causes are complex. Genes, biology, psychology, culture.
A complex interplay. Treatment needs a multidisciplinary team therapy, medical monitoring, nutrition counseling, sometimes meds. Early detection is key.
And AI's role here seems ethically tricky.
Primarily research right now, identifying risk factors, biomarkers. Using AI for early warning based on digital footprints is very complex ethically. AI chatbots might offer basic info or resources, but they absolutely cannot replace human therapists.
So for everyday healthy relationships with food, mindful eating, what is that exactly?
It's about paying attention non-judgmentally to the whole experience. The sensory details, taste, texture, smell, internal cues, hunger, fullness, eating slowly without distractions, acknowledging thoughts and emotions around food without automatically reacting.
Trying to separate physical hunger from emotional urges.
That's a big part of it. Why am I reaching for food? Am I truly hungry or stressed, bored, sad?
Practical tips. Smaller plates, reading labels, planning meals.
Those can help support it. Prioritizing nutrient-dense foods helps with satiety, too. The goal is awareness, why, what, how much you're eating, leading to more intentional choices.
Could AI support mindful eating?
Maybe. Objective feedback on portions or nutrients. Insights into physiological states linked to eating. Personalized prompts for mindful practices. Tracking patterns alongside mood stress to identify triggers and build healthier responses.
Okay, let's shift to the ethics. Our food choices aren't made in a vacuum, are they? Morals, beliefs, values all play in.
Definitely. Choices about eating animals, welfare standards, environmental impact, they're embedded in ethical frameworks. Plus, cultural and religious traditions provide guidance.
The ethics of eating animals, that's a big one. Moral vegetarianism.
Argues meat eating is wrong, usually due to production ethics. Key arguments often focus on animal suffering. If animals are sentient, capable of feeling pain, is the suffering in industrial farming necessary or justified?
In the act of killing itself. Or environmental harm.
Right. Some argue killing sentient beings is wrong in itself, or it uses them merely as means to an end. Environmental arguments point to the significant damage from meat production when alternatives exist. Philosophers use different frameworks: utilitarianism, minimizing suffering, rights-based views.
What are the counter-arguments?
Denying animals full moral status compared to humans, ideas of an implicit contract with domesticated animals, the replaceability argument, cultural significance, but animal sentience is usually the core issue.
Can AI contribute here? Beyond analyzing arguments.
Maybe in assessing welfare, analyzing animal behavior or physiology for stress indicators. But interpreting subjective experience is hard. It doesn't solve the core moral questions.
And industrial agriculture, factory farming, raises huge welfare concerns.
Often, yes. Practices like intensive confinement cages, crates, crowded barns, barren environments lacking stimulation, painful procedures often without anesthetic, breeding for extreme production that harms health, stressful transport, these often conflict with basic welfare principles.
Economics often seems to trump welfare.
That's a common criticism, plus huge environmental ethical issues.
We touched on those: climate change, land use, water pollution, biodiversity.
Exactly. Greenhouse gases, deforestation, water depletion, nutrient runoff causing dead zones, pesticide use, habitat loss. Animal agriculture has a massive footprint, plus public health risks like disease spread, antibiotic resistance.
Can AI help mitigate those issues in farming?
Yes, things like precision agriculture optimize resource use. AI monitoring can detect disease or distress earlier, optimizing feed formulations. But again, AI is a tool for efficiency. It doesn't resolve the fundamental ethics of the system itself.
What about established cultural and religious frameworks for food choices?
These provide comprehensive systems, often based on divine law, purity, tradition, identity.
Like kashrut in Judaism, halal in Islam.
Exactly. Detailed rules on permitted, forbidden animals, slaughter methods, mixing foods, Hinduism's reverence for cows, common vegetarianism, Jainism's strict nonviolence, avoiding harm to all beings. Buddhism often encourages vegetarianism. These rules have deep theological meanings.
And cultural taboos.
Yeah.
Things just not considered food.
Dog meat, horse meat, insects varies hugely. Origins can be complex history, perceived risks, availability, social status, symbolism. Sometimes taboos are temporary or situational.
Food is also central to rituals, identity.
Hugely. Shared meals, fasting, feasts, specific ceremonial foods like Passover Seder, communion. They bind communities, transmit values, and act beliefs. Adherence marks group membership, strengthens cohesion.
Do these frameworks impact health?
They can. Traditional patterns are often healthy, but very strict adherence might risk deficiencies without careful planning. Some taboos might offer protection, for example, avoiding diseased animals.
How can AI analyze these systems?
The natural language processing of religious texts or cultural ethnographies could map rules, rituals, taboos, model nutritional impacts in different contexts.
Yeah.
Important for culturally sensitive health interventions.
Okay, looking ahead. Feeding the future. Sustainability, security, massive challenges. AI's role.
It feels critical. We need to nourish a growing population, tackle hunger, fix environmental damage, deal with climate change. It requires transformation. AI is an enabling technology for optimization, resilience, cutting waste, personalization.
Global food security. Still a huge problem, right? Hunger persists.
Tragically, yes. Hundreds of millions chronically hungry, billions facing food insecurity, meaning unreliable access. Affordability is a massive barrier. Billions can't afford a healthy diet. We're way off track for the UN's goal of ending hunger by 2030.
And acute crises seem to be worsening, driven by conflict, climate.
Conflict is a major driver. Sudan, Gaza, DRC, Yemen, Haiti. Climate shocks, droughts, floods, heat waves, economic downturns, high food prices, systemic issues too, infrastructure, subsidies, weak social safety nets, unsustainable practices. We need long-term transformation, not just emergency aid.
How can AI help predict or manage these crises?
By analyzing huge data sets, climate forecasts, conflict reports, market prices, satellite imagery of vulnerability data, it can give early warnings, pinpoint hotspots, optimize aid logistics, help design better social protection.
And the environmental footprint we talked about, AI for mitigation.
Definitely. Precision agriculture, targeted water, fertilizer, pesticides, monitoring soil health, pests, optimizing crop selection, breeding climate-resilient varieties, quantifying the footprint of different foods to inform choices.
What about food waste? That number, a third of all food lost or wasted, is shocking.
It's colossal. 1.3 billion tons a year, causes very early supply chain losses in lower-income countries, retail and consumer waste in higher-income ones, cosmetic standards, overbuying, date label confusion, leftovers. In the U.S., it's the biggest thing in landfills.
The impacts are huge, too. Economic, social, environmental.
Massive. $1 trillion economic cost. Ethical outrage of waste amid hunger. Huge environmental cost, wasted resources, plus methane from landfills, a potent greenhouse gas. Reducing waste is key for climate, resources, security, costs.
What is the solution?
Better harvesting, storage, logistics, clearer labeling, consumer education, food donation, selling imperfect produce, composting, anaerobic digestion. It needs action across the whole system.
And AI's role in cutting waste.
Lots of potential. Supply chain optimization, better forecasting, inventory, retail computer vision to detect spoilage, commercial kitchens, AI systems tracking and analyzing waste patterns, household smart fridges, apps for inventory, expiration dates, recipes using leftovers.
So AI isn't just niche anymore. It's potentially transformative across the board. Sustainability, efficiency, security, personalization.
That's the potential. Its power lies in handling complexity, integrating all that biological, environmental, economic, social data, identifying patterns, making predictions, automating tasks to drive the changes we need for a healthier, more sustainable food future.
Wow. So we've covered a lot today, from our evolutionary roots through culture, ethics, health. Food is just incredibly multifaceted.
It really is. And AI provides this unique lens to synthesize all those diverse threads, to see the whole system.
Key takeaways for me. The power of personalized nutrition, understanding that mismatch between our genes and modern diets, explaining so much illness, how AI could help us understand our own needs, support mindful eating, plus modeling the impact of bigger changes.
And looking forward, the vision is powerful. Hyper-personalization, precision farming, transparent supply chains, drastically reduced waste, better food security. AI could enable so much.
But crucial to remember the challenges. Equity, privacy, bias, transparency, ethics. We need to guide AI carefully.
Absolutely. Human values have to lead. Equity, cultural respect, ethics, privacy, accessibility. They must be central as we deploy these powerful tools. Collaboration is key.
So maybe a final thought for everyone listening.
Yeah.
How can we best leverage this amazing technology, AI, to create a food system that genuinely nourishes both people and the planet, respecting all those complex dimensions we've talked about?
That's the multi-trillion-dollar question, isn't it? Definitely something to chew on.
This is DigitView.